Welcome to this guided therapy exercise that teaches you how to overcome stressful events and memories by the use of your imagination. This timeline therapy protocol can help enhance your brain's learning process, reduce fatigue, and improve focus. It can help you detach from stressful or traumatic memories and emotions that keep coming back to you. Therapies and exercises like this one help relax your nervous system while tapping into other parts of the brain, namely the brain's visualization networks, to promote neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to change and grow. Brain scans have shown us that the same brain cells that fire when we perceive something in the physical world also fire when we use visualization. In the brain, imagining an act and doing it are very similar. Visualizing, remembering, and imagining pleasant and unpleasant experiences and changing them activates the same sensory, motor, emotional, and thinking circuits that fire during physical experiences. Visualizing can be just as real as physically doing. Let's begin. First, we'll enter into an open and curious mindset. If you're used to thinking a lot, ask that part of the brain to take a step back so that you can try something new. This thinking part doesn't have to leave completely. Imagine you're placing it in a waiting room of sorts while you try out this different therapy. The first thing we'll do is to bring up what we'll call your timeline. This is a timeline, a history of your life up until now. It might sound a bit weird to begin with, but as you go with it, you'll notice things begin to flow. Using your imagination, imagine your life has been plotted along a timeline with the past on one end, the present somewhere along that line, and your future off in the distance. As you do so, notice which direction your timeline points. Where is your past pointing? Is it behind you? Is it in front of you? Is it on your left side? Or is it on your right? What about your future? Which direction is it pointing to? Some people notice that their past is located behind them, while their future is somewhere in front of them. What's your sense? If you're not quite sure, think about something you've got planned in the future, tomorrow, for example, or next week, or in a month from now. Notice if there's a sense of which direction this is pointing. Where would you point to? Do the same with your past. Where might it be? Perhaps it's behind you, or off to one side. Once you've got that sense, with these 2 points in your imagination, notice that they form a line. Sometimes the line skews a bit. Sometimes it goes through you and then veers off. Other times it forms a completely straight line. There's no right or wrong here. Just notice your timeline as it represents to you. Now, if you've still got your eyes open, I'd just like to invite you to close them and imagine, once you've got this timeline in your mind's eye, imagine that you're floating up right above your timeline, easily, effortlessly, floating. Notice as you rise that the line is down below, your future, your past, floating above. You're so high up that as you look down, your line is getting smaller and smaller until eventually it looks as if it's a yardstick down below. Notice what your line, what your timeline looks like, and notice how it feels. If you're finding it a bit difficult to rise above your timeline, perhaps something is blocking you. Or perhaps you notice that something's above that's just not letting you go through. Something perhaps like an invisible trapdoor. This is your imagination. You can shape it in any way that you like. If there is something blocking you, open it. Feel what's stopping you, moving away. Notice the thing that is preventing you from rising above, slowly fading away. That thing that's blocking you, evaporating somehow. Imagine you're going through it, rising above, or you might even notice yourself smashing into it and opening it and smashing it apart as you rise up. You might even notice yourself sliding it open or putting a hole through it as you rise above. If your imagination is setting up a barrier, use your imagination to go through this barrier easily and effortlessly, floating up, 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 way above your timeline, noticing your past, down, below. Notice how you can float high up above it. Notice what it looks like from up there, what it feels like. And once you get to a comfortable height, just stay there for a bit and just notice. Notice how it feels. Next, I'll get you to sink back down, down, down. Coming back down, closer to your timeline, closer to the present, closer to this moment. Coming back into your own body easily and effortlessly. Open your eyes. Now, you've just had an experience of floating above. Your brain's noticed that you're doing something a little different, so it's tuned in. The imagination cogs are turning. This was a brief tour of your timeline through accessing that part of you that might not be as conscious as usual, that more imaginative and more emotive part of you. What we're going to do now is we're going to locate a memory or a feeling or an emotion of sorts that you would like to feel differently about. It could be anything, but it might not want to be something that is too traumatic. Take a moment and notice whatever it is that you would like to feel differently about. Notice the emotion. Notice how it feels as you bring this thing up for you. Could be fear or anxiety or guilt or anger. Could be something else. Take your time and notice. And once you've got this thing, you want to set your expectations for a moment. We are going to unplug from this negative emotion through this therapy that you're doing today. You're going to get some relief from this mental burden, this thing that keeps coming back to you, impacting your life. You're going to detach from it, free up some room in your mind and your body, making things clearer and more content. So let's bring up that target memory, that thought, that feeling, that sensation, that emotion. Something from your past, anything. It might be something from earlier today or a few days ago. It could be from last week, a few weeks or months ago. Or it could be something from years ago. Something you are totally willing to let go. And once you've got that thing, ask yourself, is there any part of me that objects to letting this thing go? Just wait a moment and listen. Hone inside. Access that interoceptive awareness. That awareness that you have of your own body as it's located through that experience, that perception, access through your brain. If there is a part of you that's like not quite ready to let this go yet, this is probably not the right memory for today. Or perhaps it's a memory that you might need to bring to therapy. so that your therapist can guide you through this process or another process. But if there is no objection, then you're ready. You can proceed. You might notice that there's some objection, but you still want to proceed. In that case, see if you can ask that part of you that objects to take a step back so you can try this different therapy today. Let that part of you know that you want to see if this therapy will work. And if it doesn't, that part of you can come back at any time and stop this protocol. Take a moment to notice if that part of you is willing to take a step back and just to watch for a moment. If it is, you can proceed to the next step. Okay, now that you've accessed your target, I want you to think about it. I want you to feel it for a moment and ask yourself this question. When was the first time I felt like this? You might get a sense that you're carrying something from very early on. Or it could be that you're carrying something from later on in life. It could be even as far back as from the time of your birth. Some people can actually go far, far back and notice that there's something that they're carrying that started from birth, for example. Some people, their mind might tell them that this is something that happened even before birth. There's no right or wrong here. Neuroscientists tell us that these sensations are informed by what they call neuroception, your gut feelings and heartfelt senses, or your implicit sensations that come to you without any explanation, without your thinking mind coming on board. Just go with whatever comes up, noticing where this feeling first originated. If you're having a bit of difficulty accessing this and you can only remember when you access this memory or this feeling based on the last thing that you're thinking about, the thing that you brought to this therapy today, just go with that. But if there is a time that happened before, you want to go with that. So let's go ahead and connect with that emotion, to feel it just for a second, to make sure you know it's there. Let's go into it a little bit further. You might want to do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. If this feeling, you get a sense that this feeling has been passed down through history, how many generations back does it go? Some people carry a lot of baggage from their past, or from their parents' past, or even further back. These legacies can influence the way that we feel. If this is you, notice how far back this feeling goes. If it was during your birth, how so? Some experience birthing trauma and carry this throughout their childhood and later in life. Others experience impacts within the womb where they, as a fetus, were affected. Notice whether you get a sense that this was you. If you're carrying something from after your birth, how far back does this go? What's your age? If you're carrying something just from last week and it feels new and feels like that's what's actually going on, then let's just go with that. You might even notice that there are multiple ages, multiple senses that you get. Many different memories are scattered and coming at you. Just choose one and see what happens. Because the next step, we're going to float above again. And you want to do this with your eyes closed. So once you've got your target, you're going to do that again. You're going to float up, 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 above your timeline, up above, high up, like you did before. And once you get to that height that you're most comfortable with, look down and see if you can pinpoint the present moment, the moment that you are in right now. And then looking back in the history of your timeline, pinpoint the time period where this emotion first manifested. Once you've got it, I want you to take a moment to glide back over, still at an altitude, that you're comfortable with back over and over and over and above it, so that when you look down, you're at that time period where this emotion first started, high up above, floating. Now, I'm going to take a moment to notice again if there's any part of you that's just not willing to go back there. This might happen if there's a deep trauma of some kind. And if that's the case, don't force yourself. Get permission from that part of you to go ahead. And if it gives you that permission, go ahead and float over that part, that time period. And if you can't get permission, just come back to the room. You can address this trauma in therapy instead. But if you do have a green light to go ahead, let's proceed to the next step. Okay, so you're way above this time period now. Now you're going to start slowly floating down to that time. As you float down, notice that you're looking out of your own eyes. You may be seeing things, you may be seeing yourself, you may be seeing other things happening around. Those things can't see you, but you can see them. Notice what you hear. Notice what you feel. Notice any emotion that arises in that very first instance. And as you feel these emotions, I want you to float back up, high above, feeling what's going on, feeling what's happening in your body. And as you rise above, and you look down, you see that moment. And you look back to your timeline, you can see the past again. Noticing your timeline as it stretches back to wherever it stretches. And as you look on the other side, you'll see all those time periods after the event, all the way to the present, towards now. As you look towards now, with that first event underneath you, where's that negative emotion? Is it there? If it is, I want you to glide back, even further back, above your timeline to before this event. Could be a year before, could be 10 years before, could be even from before you were born. Notice that you're gliding back through that timeline so that that event is way into the future. And keep gliding further back until it feels right to stop. The event is now way into the future. How is your emotion now? How does it feel? If it's still there, I want you to glide even further back. What time period are you? As you look ahead, how far into the future is the initial event? How do you feel now? If you're noticing that the feeling is starting to reduce somehow, I want you to start gliding further above, higher, and then turn to the future, way past the event, way past until you get to the present. And go further into the present until you're gliding and hovering above the present moment as you look down. Noticing that the event is in the past. How's the emotion now? If you still feel quite a lot of emotion, I want you to do this a few times, going back and forth, twice as further back to that, until the event starts to slowly reduce in its intensity, in its emotion. And when you feel like you're at that point, you might want to pause the instruction until you get there. Try this a few times. Once you've got that, I want you to float back to the event or float forward to the event and come down like you did before, so that you're looking around this event. No one can notice you, but you can notice what's going on. Look around. What's the emotion like now? Notice whatever it is that you notice. Feel whatever it is that you feel. If the emotion is not totally gone but has reduced in some way, that's great. You are on the right track. Any reduction is better than none. Some people feel a huge reduction, some a small one. For others, it's totally gone, that emotion. Some might feel like it's the same as before, and if that's you, that's okay too. Just means that we're on a journey. You might need someone else with you as you glide through this journey. A therapist perhaps, or somebody else, somebody you trust, to guide this process forward. If you notice that the emotion has totally gone, I want you to go back to that time where you noticed it totally released. Could be further back in time, could be some other plot in that timeline of yours. Once you get there, look towards now, the present moment, from that vantage point. How does it feel? Now take a moment to go back to now and float down easily, effortlessly, down into your own body. Noticing the negative emotions evaporate, fall away like scales from your eyes. Once it's all done and you're back in your body and you're ready, take a moment to open your eyes, look around the room that you're in. Notice how you feel. Notice the present moment. As we come to the end of this therapy, noticing what's just happened, we want to look into the future. Take a moment to think about what you want to tell yourself moving forward. Are there any positive thoughts and beliefs that you would like to adopt? Remember that thoughts, when told often enough, become beliefs. That's what's happened up until now. Anything you tell yourself over and over again becomes a belief, whether it's helpful or unhelpful. Are there any thoughts, any positive thoughts that you would like to adopt in light of what's just happened? Thoughts about yourself, thoughts about others, thoughts about the world. I want you to take a moment to choose any thoughts that feel right to you, thoughts that you can believe. And sit with these thoughts for a moment, noticing how they feel. And whenever you're ready, take a moment to finish this therapy, this exercise, this protocol. Go about your day with a smile on your mind.